and welcome back to the NRLW Weekly podcast, all thanks to Lite N and Harvey Norman. My name is Marlee Silva, I'm an NRLW super fan, and joining me as always is a legend of the game, Ruan Sims. On the show today, there's quite a few injuries that are popping up across the competition which really concern us. Who's going to be the new Queensland Maroons coach? Of course, we have Lite N learning with Ru and my what caught my sideline eye, plus your own questions before we get into the preview for round 7 of the NRLW. But right now, Ru, it's time for your NRLW Weekly Medal, where each week you vote for your team and your player of the round.
Yeah, Marlee. Well, this was a really tough one this week because there were a number of really cool standout performances individually, but also some teams. And I think I've done this before, but I'm going to do it again. The team of the week is shared again this week. And the reason I've shared it is because the Roosters have now clocked up 12 wins in a row. It's the highest in NRLW history, so it would be remiss of me not to have them in there. And then also it's shared with the Warriors because I thought that their 34-6 performance over the Bulldogs was fantastic. And yeah, so that's why I'm sharing the team of the week. And then my player of the week, there were again a number of huge standout individual performers. Emma Verren, considering she was supposed to be not playing with a foot injury, was instrumental at the back for the Sharks. Julia Robinson joined the 300-metre club. There was, incredible performances right across the park. And however, I'm giving my player of the week this week to Patricia Maliepo from the Warriors. I thought she was incredible, scored a couple of tries, had her fingerprints all over the game. Her halves partner, Emily Curtin, had the most forced dropouts in NRLW. She had 4 in one game, so obviously her kicking game really allowed Maliepo to play her natural style. So yeah, that's my shared team of the week and player of the week with honourable mentions.
Yes, and I think the Warriors look like they have a new level of confidence or something after their first win away from home in Magic Round. Obviously it broke my heart seeing the Dogs go down, but they just were so dominant. And Maliepo, gosh, isn't she just making a name for herself in the NRLW? Let's get stuck into some of the big headlines that have come out this week. I think a huge talking point, which unfortunately is one that comes up every single season, is we've had this horrible run of injuries over the weekend. Jamie Chapman did a syndesmosis. Taylor Preston did her MCL. I'm not 100% sure on what the diagnosis was with Quincy Dodd, but it was an ankle injury.
Ankle, yeah, and it's indefinite with Quince.
Indefinite, and I think there's Madison Bartlett did her collarbone. We've had this huge array of injuries again, and it always raises the question about, is the depth in the NRLW squads deep enough? Is this, again, another reiteration of the fact that we need a 30-player squad like the men's? So, at the risk of sort of repeating ourselves, Ru, I would love to know your perspective on this and whether something like this, again, happening to some of the biggest names in our game really adds urgency to some of these changes we're hoping to see in the next CBA.
Yeah, and look, it's a fair question. And your assessment of it is correct. Halfway through a year, every year we have this conversation. Even when it was 4 teams, it was still the conversation. Should there even be an NRLW when we're having so many injuries? Sometimes you have to persist. And then when I look at it, it's a very nuanced thing. There's a number of issues that come into play because some of the issues are, say, soft tissue, which could come down to, I would say if you have a lot of soft tissue injuries, the girls these women aren't full-time. They're part-time and they still have to work or go to school or run businesses and run families or study and do all of this sort of stuff. And they only have training a certain number of days a week after 4 p.m. until 8 or 8:30 p.m. And that's all they have. That's what they're allowed to do physically. And everything else that they do is outside of that on their own time. So I feel like a lot of those soft tissue injuries, sometimes a lot of them and, other sorts of injuries can be negated or minimised if you're in a professional full-time program because your job is then to train, recover, play, prep, do all of that sort of stuff to be a professional athlete. And obviously by 2028, I'd love to see that happen. Again, the depth of squads is really important. I'd love to see it go to 30 so that you do have that ability, if you have some injuries, to be able to draw on that deeper squad. And then obviously when you have the issue with that is then where does the money come from to pay for those extra players, because the CBA has already been agreed on. Do they wait till 2028? Do they bite the bullet and do it now? There's all of these things that have to be discussed. And then also one that we probably don't talk about much is that we play a body collision sport where unfortunately sometimes contact injuries happen. And even some of the ones that we've seen with ankles and knees, it's been studs getting caught in the ground and not releasing from the ground and then getting twisted over. And sometimes they are unavoidable. Injuries are unavoidable. And that is the nature of putting your body in those kinds of positions. You are vulnerable to injury. And I'm not saying that that is the be-all and end-all, but there are a multitude of things that come together for this to happen. But there's also some players returning from injury, which is really good to see. However, I think in the acute phase, I would like to see that squad extended. How that happens, I'm not sure, because like I said, it costs money to do that. I would like to see that squad extended. And I know that there is a lot of argument saying, we don't need to add extra teams. I would like to see more games though. So I'd like to see the girls go full time. And then that would obviously, it would come with its own set of issues, but it would also solve some issues. There are pros and cons to absolutely everything. And we don't ever want to see any players injured, but there are so many moving parts in this decision. But yeah, there is no one-stop shop to fix it. So unfortunately, it is something that we have seen a lot of big name players go down this year, and that maybe have something to do with it as well. And then also all of that then begs the question, then where does Origin start to sit in the frame of things, and what does the season look like? So as everyone at home, and probably you can tell now, there are a lot of things to consider in this. And this is only a small issue that we're discussing, but the ramifications are huge and the moving parts around it are very, very dynamic. So, yeah, it's a tough one, but no one ever wants to see players injured, ever.
No, absolutely not. Beautifully said, as always, Rue. It's the never-ending discussion, it feels like, in the NRLW, but we'll get there in the end, I think. And more than anything, we wish all of those players who have been injured the speediest of recoveries. We hate seeing them on the sideline. Speaking about Origin, Tahnee Norris has stood down from the Queensland Maroons coaching position after 5 or nearly 6 years at the helm there. And I think not many of us are that surprised that it was time for her to kind of take a step back. But the big question becomes, who becomes the new Maroons coach? I see Greg Inglis' name has been thrown up. He's been in the assistant coaching role for a little while. What do you think, Rue?
Yeah, well, GI has been spoken about, and I know that he would be fantastic and he would do such a great job because he's so passionate about rugby league and passionate about the women's game. And that's been evidenced for a very, very long time. And I spoke about this last week. I think somebody that's probably not mentioned that much is Nathan Cross, who was there previously as well in an assistant role, and he runs an NRLW club now. He might be someone that would be considered for the role. And then after I spoke about it last week, in the break of our NRLW wrap, I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe this wasn't the first name that popped into my mind. And it's Karryn Murphy.
Of course.
She is a Queensland legend. She's an Australian Gillaroos legend. She was in the integrity unit for the NRL. She runs the Gold Coast Titans women's program. She's the head coach of the Titans, and she has a wonderful relationship with all of these players, and she has a great level-headed approach. So I think regardless of which way they go, I think all three are great options, but I kind of have a feeling that maybe Karryn Murphy and Nathan Cross might be closer to the head coach role, and I know that GI would fill whatever role he was allowed to, because I know how passionate he is about it. But if he got the head coaching role as well, I would also not be surprised. But I think the other two might just have a little bit extra because they are currently running NRLW clubs. But then again, this then begs the question, if it sits mid-season, that probably can't happen. But if it sits pre-season the way it is now, it potentially could. So, yeah, there's like I said, so many moving parts in the women's game at the moment.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, Karryn Murphy, Nathan Cross, Greg Inglis, all really great candidates.
And I'll say the quiet bit out loud for you, Roo. You don't really care because the Blues are going to beat them anyways, your mindset. Oh, yes. It'll be exciting, whoever gets named there for sure. Hey, now it's time for one of the best segments in our podcast, Learning with Lite N Easy, learning with you, Roo. Lite N Easy, train hard, eat smart, fuel up with Lite N Easy's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. The choice of elite athletes and busy fans alike. Roo, what are we learning this week?
So this week, I thought I'd touch on a little wraparound play or a bump ball, as we call it. I don't know, what did you call it in touch? Did you call it a wraparound or a bump?
Wrap.
So, and like the wrap play is so good because you can get the numbers advantage without adding an extra body on that side, and then it forces the defence to make really, really good decisions and make sure, like, you test their connection. And now the clip that I've got for you is the one from the weekend with the Raiders, and I've sent you the clip because we're apart at the moment. Distance keeps us apart, but our love for rugby league will never die, Marlee. I've sent you the clip, and so that you can have a look at what I'm talking about. So
I also have to say I was there at that game and I actually noted how beautiful this play was.
Yeah, lovely. And a couple of weeks ago, Magic Round, the Sharks ran a similar play, but the execution was very different. So that's why I thought I'd try this. I'll go through this one because it is a more traditional wrap play. So what happens is there's a play the ball outside the far right post, and then it's what's called a two pass to the half. So dummy half to a first receiver onto a half who's running a tail line out the back of a block. So the block is obviously the lead runner goes up and in, and the tail runner catches it on the outside of that lead runner and then plays what's happening. So if we hit play, you can see the pass comes from dummy half to first receiver, then it hits Sahara Temera out the back. And then what Sahara Temera does, she can identify that there's some defence shooting up. So she hits her lead runner because there's another block shape out the back, and it's a fullback running the tail to the second rower. And so what she does, she hits the second rower short, and then you can see what the second rower does. She goes straight ahead and turns slightly inwards. And what that does, it forces that half, right now in this instance, it's Ali Brigginshaw, who's the 3 defender, forces her to play on the person with the ball because she thinks she's going to be able to get up there and shut it down. And then what Sahara Temera does is scoots around behind her and gets a pass back on the inside. And when she does that, because she's got the ball in 2 hands and there's bodies moving outside of her, the half has bitten in, the centre's stayed out. It's created a gap between the half and the centre. So that's the 3 and the 2 defender. And what she does then, normally if those defenders collapse in and stay connected, the pass has to be really good to either go over the top or hit a short line. And then all she has to do is hang on to the ball, spot the gap, and then just pops a little bit of pedal to the metal and makes it through to the try line. So it's a really great play. I love it. So Sahara Temera, a nice little bump play, great execution from the second rower as well under significant pressure from the Broncos. And well done, Z, by actually just identifying that space and taking it on. And I think what a lot of halves, and probably what a lot of football players think first is that they have to ball play first, but always your first option is run first. If there's space there, they'll take it on and then you play. And that's exactly what Z does here. Like, she plays, then she identifies, no, actually, I've got space to run. I need to take the line on. And she does that, breaks through, scores a 4-pointer. So, yeah, this is a very traditional wrap style play.
Yes, I was going to say that. It's a bit of an OG sort of footy move in any sort of version of the game. And in real time, it just looked so seamless. Yeah. Love that breakdown. Classic one. Yeah. Thank you so much, Roo.
No, you're welcome.
You're listening to the NRLW Weekly podcast with Marlee Silva and Ruan Sims. Thanks to Lite N Easy and Harvey Norman. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the NRLW Weekly podcast with me, Marlee Silva, and you, Ruan Sims, thanks to Lite N Easy and Harvey Norman. Bonus gift cards with selected TVs, fridges, and more now at Harvey Norman. Now, this is usually where you intro.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So, Marlee, in our favourite segment, what's caught your sideline eye this week?
Let me tell you, I could not think about anything other than the fact that I spent not one, but 2 days in the nation's capital on this weekend. Friday night footy in Canberra for the men's competition, and then I was back on Sunday down there for the Raiders and Broncos game. And there's so many things that I really enjoyed down there, but 2 things that I wanted to point out. The first is I had an in real life interaction with a big fan of the NRLW Weekly podcast that I had to shout out. Her name is Ella, and she works for a radio station down in Canberra. She's just started doing Sideline, and she came up and we were talking about what the go was with Madison Bartlett's injury, because when you're on the sideline you always share information with each other when we get it from the squads, and she just said she's the biggest fan of the show. She loves listening, she loves learning from you, Ru, and that made me really happy because I don't know if I've had an in real life interaction with someone who listens to the show religiously every week. So I thought that was really special. And then also down there, a really cool kind of end to the first weekend of the first NRLW Indigenous round. We're seeing Katrina Fanning on the sideline, such a proud Aboriginal woman, an NRL Hall of Famer, and a passionate Raiders fan, and she's involved in the club. And when the Raiders started to fight back, the way I was a little bit worried Katrina was going to pass out because she was so excited, but also how emotional she was about it being Indigenous round, what it means to her. Also talking to Grace Kemp, who's unfortunately sidelined at the moment with a finger injury. She had this beautiful kangaroo skin with her that came from Jess Skinner. It was just like all these beautiful talking points and moments about Indigenous round that kind of wrapped it up really nicely for me the first weekend. I think there's so many things I could talk about what I saw across the first weekend of Indigenous round, but just how proud it makes the girls, how proud it makes a pioneer like Katrina Fanning as well. It was just, beautiful experience. So a little bit of a different what caught my sideline eye this week because, my whole brain is just Canberra. But it was a really lovely kind of end to that round to have those 2 interactions. So that's me.
That's awesome. Can I add one as well? Because I saw one and I thought this is really cool. Eva McEwen and Jermaine McEwen, first ever brother-sister duo to score for the same club on the same weekend.
Yes.
I thought that was actually pretty cool. And Eva got the wood over him because she got a double and he only got 1. So that's even better.
And in her interview post-match with Millie Elliott, she got really emotional talking about representing her family. And I actually sent her a message on Instagram because I was like, she brought tears to my eyes when I saw that. And she was like, I had a good cry after the game because it just means so much. Because, they're a proud Aboriginal family from Mount Druitt out west in Western Sydney. And I think representing the mob the way that they do, that the brother-sister duo is pretty special. So, that's a good one. Thanks for pointing that one out, Ru.
That's a great one. And I also really loved when she was doing her post-game interview, she was ready to grab the mic. And she was like this, chatting, and Millie's like, yep. Like, give her the mic, Millie, give her the mic. And we were video. But you could just tell the emotion that she had in that game and what it meant to her. And 100%. I think that's what makes this round so important.
Absolutely.
You get to see all of that cultural importance and just how much it means to all of the players to be, represented and understood and recognised in that way.
Great. Let's get into your questions. We love hearing from you guys who are listening to the show. Please keep sending in your amazing questions. This first one comes from Carly. Hi, ladies. We're seeing some great young talent come through in the game. Ru, from a coach's perspective, what's the biggest challenge in developing these young players? And what's one piece of advice you would give to an up-and-coming NRLW star? Great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I think the biggest challenge in developing these players is, as coaches, to understand this next generation coming through and understand what drives them and how to motivate them, and making sure that we as coaches are constantly working to improve ourselves to make sure that we are able to deliver the information that they need in the way that they need. I think from my perspective, that's really important for me as a coach. But also not losing sight of what I know and how I work. So, it's a balancing act, and you can just see the best coaches do it so brilliantly, like Bellamy, Wayne Bennett, Trent Robinson. They all have very different personalities, but they find a way to motivate and engage their troops around them. And I think that's what's really important, is being able to find that connection piece and making sure that you have that, because you have to have a really good connection to your players to be able to deliver some pretty harsh truths and harsh critiques. But you can't do that if you don't have a really good connection with them. It will just fracture. So you need to make sure that that connection piece is really, really important from that coaching perspective. If there's a piece of advice to give to an up-and-coming NRLW star, probably the biggest thing is to be coachable is a really important one, and is to be open to receiving critique. And it's hard to hear. Being critiqued is hard to hear. But at the same time, if you approach it with curiosity and you think, okay, I'll have a look at it, and then take it away, and then actually have a look at the information and filter it against what you know, and then ask questions and just be open to learning is really, really important, because coaches aren't hard on you because they don't like you. They're hard on you because they want you to be your best, and they want to bring out the best in you. And that's something that is hard to understand when you're a little bit younger. It's hard to understand as an adult. But, like if the coach probably wasn't giving you any feedback or didn't really talk to you or whatever, then I'd be worried. But if they're critiquing you and they just want the best, they want the best out of you, So just be open, be coachable, and just work on things that require zero talent. Be good at those things, being on time, which means being early, being prepared, having your book with you, writing your notes, making sure you get through all your recovery, get all your sleep done, make sure you're eating properly, like all of those little things that don't require any football talent whatsoever. It just requires your discipline and your application. Hopefully that's not too big of a piece of information or advice for up-and-coming NRL players.
That advice is applicable to anyone who's pursuing anything, to be coachable. I think that a big lesson I've learned in my life is when people are giving you constructive criticism and feedback, to not take it personally. It's not a mark on you as a human being. It's just, this is how you can do things better. And I think that makes a lot of sense for athletes, but it makes a lot of sense for anyone who's trying to do something and make something of themselves, I think, for sure.
And I had a really great coach, Glenn Brayley. He's obviously the father of the Brayley boys. And there was always one thing he said to us when he was coaching, is like, listen to the message, not the tone. Sometimes delivery is off because of just the nature of us being human and circumstance and everything. But the message is always very clear. And sometimes the tone of the message is to elicit a certain type of response, but you just need to listen to the message as well. There's always value. There's always those little nuggets of gold inside that. And that sticks with me every time I do things. Anything I think of, listen to the message, not the tone. So thanks for that, Brails. You live rent-free in my head.
There you go. That's a great piece of advice.
Well, he's done pretty well. He's got a couple of pretty good sons that play footy, and he's got three boys that are fantastic people as well. So
exactly. Great. Great question, Carly. Another one has come in from Tom, and it's actually Marlee.
Yeah, it's Marlee. Can I read it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Marlee. This one is from Tom. Marlee, as a commentator and an ambassador for the game, what's the one thing that you think the NRLW does better than any other sport to attract and keep young and new fans? Is it the skill on display, access to players, or is it something else entirely? That's a great question.
Oh, that is a great question. And I don't think...
And so
yes,
intimate knowledge of this.
And I would say it's not one thing, isn't it? It's a couple of things, and it's things that have developed over, the entirety of the existence of the NRLW, broadcast rights, the fact that you can watch every single NRLW game live and free on 9 and 9 Now. Like, actually having that access and being able to watch the girls. Like, I remember, you would remember this too, Rue. It's not that long ago when it was really hard to watch women's sport. Like, to even know, I remember when I was trying to watch netball.
How to see it, yeah.
Like, it was too hard, way too hard to find the girls, and that really limits people. I think that it works wonders to have a lot of double headers. We have more and more double headers, which has introduced a lot more people to the women's game. Fans of one team will show up earlier for their girls' sides. But the number one thing, and I think the thing that is the most successful element that is hooking people in and keeping them is the girls themselves, the characters that they are, how generous they are with sharing their stories, with really being that more and more they're being way more engaged on social media. They're really good at fan engagement. They have all the time in the world, and I think that you look at any sort of like superstar in the world, from a boy band to your favorite actor or whatever, those who are so successful are the ones who have fan bases who feel like they have ownership over the profile of the person. So I love how much the girls are really social media savvy and brand savvy, and they're really just learning. Like, I've been talking to Jazzy Strange a fair bit because I just think what she's doing in the content space and how smart she's being about making her profile as a rugby league player, multi-dimensional, and people have access to her. It works in her favor, and the girls are just really smart at doing that. And I think they're just really great characters, very lovable characters. And the more that I talk to NRLW fans, they all have a favorite player. And it's such a huge array of girls, and that's what's really working right now is how visible the girls are, how good they are at telling their stories, and what great role models they are, because they do juggle a million things, and they know how to sort of articulate all that, the advice that you just said, Ru. Like, so many of the girls are really good at sharing those messages. So I think that those are a couple of the things that are working really, really well at the moment. And not to mention, like, the skill itself and the product itself, we all know it is just, I don't even care if it's controversial to say, we're above and beyond a lot of other kind of, female domestic competitions at the moment with the skill set there. And that's a fact. I think a lot of people know it's not a competition, but I think that's a big thing that's working in our favor at the moment.
Yeah, well, I also feel like our vision or mission is to be the number one women's sport in Australia. And I think the strategy that we're using to get there is really smart, and it is working. And obviously I'm a dinosaur and I've been there for a long time, but I was there when it started. And our tagline when we started the NRLW was same game, our way. And I think I don't think we use it very much anymore, but it resonates with me. And I think it resonates with a lot of fans too. And even some of those really baked on hardcore old supporters love the way the girls play the game. And, it's the same game, but we play it our way. And I think that's also probably a really good draw card for the women's game as well.
Absolutely. Great questions. Seriously, every week, these questions, they just get better. This almost brings us to the end of this episode of the NRLW Weekly podcast. But before we get there, it's round 7, week 2 of Indigenous round. Let's get through these tips, your quick fire thoughts, Ruth. First one is the Sharks and the Titans, which will be interesting.
It is, because obviously the injuries we spoke about, Jamie Chapman, Piliai Rasembale also has a hamstring concern, so she's out. Quincy Dodd is out. It's going to be a tough one, but we'll see Talia Fuimono come into the number 6 jersey. I think someone for the Titans that really impressed me last week was Hipai on the wing. I thought she was incredible for such a young player. She had such great poise. And Lafipo through the middle is going to be hard to handle. So it is a home game for the Sharks. They welcome back their captain, Tiana Penatani. Brooke Anderson will go to 9. So, I think probably what also excites me is just having a look on the extended bench, Caitlin Johnston-Green and Jada Taylor on extended benches. So obviously we don't, 24 hours out we'll know, and then an hour before we'll know for sure. But it'll be interesting to see if either of those girls are able to make their return this week. But I will be tipping the Sharks at home.
Yes. Okay. And then it'll be the Broncos and the Eels.
This is going to be a really good game for the Eels. They had a hard-fought loss on the weekend, just lost by 4 points. This will give them the opportunity to sort of really test where their season is and what they can do with it. Obviously, they're welcoming back Kennedy Charrington, which is a really big one. Boss Kapoor, I think, as well, is coming back from injury. So she'll start on that edge. And however, I do find just the way, even though the Broncos conceded 20 odd, or more than 20 points to the Raiders really fought back hard for those points. I think that they'll just have a bit too much class and get the job done over the Eels.
Yes, you get that feeling. They're on a roll at the moment. The Warriors are also on a roll, and that's the next game I want to talk about. They'll be back at home and they're hosting the Raiders. Like you said, the Raiders fought really hard in that game against the Broncos. They showed that, I think, the most promise they've shown all season, but just couldn't get the job done. Do you think they can give the Warriors a crack, like a run for their money at least?
I think they'll push the Warriors, and if the Warriors think it's going to be an easy win, they'll be shocked. I know the Warriors probably go in as pretty heavy favourites, and I am tipping them for the win, especially at home, and just the way that their halves are playing together, the way their forward pack has been really dominant. I think Fotu Moala starting has been amazing for them up front, and Kitai, that's a really great front row pairing. And yeah, look, it's going to be, I don't want the Raiders to lose another game. I'd love to see them get a win up. I just feel like at home, the Warriors, obviously really finding their feet. It's halfway through the season. I think it was like 10 or 11 of their players, or even more, their starting team hadn't played any rugby league at NRLW level before. So they're really finding their feet now, especially under that guidance of Ronnie Griffiths. I think they'll get the job done at home.
Okay, what about the Tigers and the Dragons?
Yeah, this is going to be a toughie for the Tigers because the Dragons are going to be smarting after their loss to the Sharks, and they're also welcoming back Tegan Berry. Indy Bostock is due to come back as well at centre, and Ray McGregor is returning from suspension. And obviously there's been a little bit of a reshuffle through the Tigers, West Tigers as well. Caitlin Turnbull is going back to fullback. Faye Fu will go to 6. And obviously Tonga Tuki and Apps have just been consistent workhorses, as has Montana Clifford. I thought she's done really, really well for them. I just feel like the Dragons will get the job done. Even though it's a West Tigers home game, I think the Dragons, they'll just be really hungry for this one, and Tigers will push them, but I think the Dragons will just come up with trumps.
Okay, and then on the Central Coast, the Roosters will host the Knights. So it's sort of the Roosters' second home. There's a lot of Central Coast representatives in that Roosters side, and the Knights will make the trip down. That this could be a really good battle. I really hope the Knights put it to them just to make, put them under threat, because they're just too bloody good, these Roosters.
I know. Well, they've won 12 in a row. They're aiming for 13, obviously, this weekend. And the last 2 games of this round are probably the 2 games of the round. I think this game in particular on the Central Coast is a great litmus test for the Knights to see where their season is. They dropped the first game of the year, then they've won 5 in a row. So they're playing some really good football, and they've just sort of simplified what works for them, but they haven't put together a full 70-minute performance yet. It's been sort of 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, a half here, a half there. I think they'll be looking to be really consistent and build this whole game. And I feel like last weekend we were shown how you can frustrate the Roosters if you take it to them physically. And that's the only way you're going to get the job done, because they won't beat themselves. And I've said this before, they won't beat themselves. You have to really take the game to them, and you have to force their playmakers to make a lot of tackles so that they don't have as much energy in the tank when it comes to attack. And the only problem with that is that this Roosters outfit have 4 or 5 people who can step up into that playmaking role. So if you attack just one, the others will make you pay for it. So you have to be really consistent with where you're finishing your sets, where you're getting to, which tags you're getting at, what you're trying to do, and making sure that you stick to that game plan. So this will be a great test. Like, the battle of the halves in this game is going to be key. It's going to be an awesome test for Jessie Southwell and Taryn Aiken going up against each other as the dominant 7s, and then Georgia Roach and Joss Kelleher going up against each other as the 5/8s. And look, I feel like that the Roosters will win, but the Knights will really, really take, like, if the Knights do get the win, I won't be surprised if they can stick to that consistent plan. And I'd love to tip the upset, but I just feel like this Roosters outfit is hard to stop. But yeah, look, I hope the Knights get the job done, but I feel like the Roosters might be too good.
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? And then our final game will be up in North Queensland. The Cowboys will host the Bulldogs. Bulldogs obviously reeling. They'll be without Taylor Preston. Ash Quinlan also has a hamstring injury, I believe.
Yeah, she does. So Ash Quinlan has a bit of hamstring tightness. That's what she came from the field.
Yeah.
However, Taylor Preston has been named on the extended. So it is an MCL injury, not ACL. And I think Gus spoke about it on Monday night on 100% footy as well. They will just keep an eye on it. They'll see what happens. But this will be a great game for both sides and a really good test for both sides.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of injuries. Tegan Dimmick, I think, has done a Liz Frank injury in her foot, so she's out. Holly Wheeler will come into the front row. Last week we saw Jakaya Whitfeld and Crystal Blackwell swap. Jakaya went to the wing and Crystal went to fullback in the second half against the Eels. China Palata returned through BMD last week, so she'll be pushing very soon for selection in this Cowboys outfit. But it's going to be a tough game. If Taylor Preston doesn't play, I think the Cowboys get it. I really do, and especially because no Alexis Toeniae as well for the Bulldogs, and I feel like they really miss her. They really miss her. So if
she was named to return and then was a late out. So concerning.
So she's named at 18th here. So if she comes back in, that'll go a long way for them to get the job done.
Yeah. And the Cows are just looking good, which is
they are
exciting for them. Really exciting for them.
Yeah. I will say this, though. I felt their kicking game was a little off last week against the Eels, especially in the conditions. So I'm sure they'll work on that this week and make sure that their intercepts are a little tidier. But they've got some genuinely good strike in that side. Yeah. So, it'll be a great game, that one.
It'll be another great round of NRLW footy. Make sure you're tuning in for all of it. If you can't get to any games, of course, you can catch every single one live and free on 9 and 9 now. I can't believe we're at round 7 already, Rue. Time is just slipping away from us. But thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the NRLW Weekly podcast. Share this app with a friend. Get more people on board. This super fan base of NRLW supporters is growing all the time and you want to be a part of it. Rue, thank you for your wisdom as always. I've been Marlee Silva and this has all been thanks to Lite N and Harvey Norman. We'll catch you next time.